Hello everyone and welcome. This is our second lesson. One of the reasons Excel is so useful is because it can perform calculation very quickly. In today's lesson, we will learn the most basic Excel formula, including arithmetic operation and cell references. First, we will learn how to use addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Then, we'll learn the difference between relative references and absolute references. If you're ready, let's get started. Let's begin with arithmetic operation. On the screen, you can see a sample table with first cell data. In Excel, you can perform calculations just like you would on a calculator. For addition, we use the plus sign. For subtraction, we use the minus sign. For multiplication, we use the asterisk. And for division, we use the slash. First, let's look at addition. Apple sales on Monday are 30. Apple sales on Tuesday are 20. Select the total sold sale. Type on equal sign, click the Monday sale. Type a plus sign. Then click the Tuesday sale and press enter. 30 plus 20 equals 50. Now, let's calculate the remaining fruit. Move your mouse to the bottom right corner of the cell. A small cross will appear. Drag it downward. Excel automatically copies the formula and calculates all the values. Next, let's look at subtraction. This table shows fruit inventory data. To find the remaining quantity, we need to subtract sold from stock. Apple stock is 100. The sold quantity is 50. Select the remaining cell, type an equal sign. Click the stock cell, type a minus sign. Click the sold cell and press enter. 100 minus 50 equals 50. Now use autofill to calculate the remaining fruits. Drag the fill handle downward. Let's look at multiplication. This table contains sale quantity and price. Revenue can be calculated by multiplying quantity sold by the price. Apple sold 20 units. The price is $2. Select the revenue cell, type on equal sign. Click the quantity sold cell. Type on asterisk. Finally, let's look at division. This table shows fruit sale data. Average means the average amount sold. We can calculate the average by dividing total sold by the number of days. Apple sold 20 units. The sale period is 7 days. Select the average cell and type equal sign. Click the total data cell and type slash. Click the days cell and press enter. 70 divided by 7 equals 10. Now, drag the fill handle downward. Excel automatically calculates the average for all fruits. So far, we have learned how to use addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Now, let's run one of the most important concepts in Excel. Let's start with relative references. In this table, we have the number of male steps and female steps. To calculate the total number of steps, we need to add the two values together. Type an equal sign. Click the male step cell. Type a plus sign. Click the female step cell. Press enter. Now, let's use the fill handle. Drag it downward. Excel automatically copies the formula. Let's look at the formulas. The first formula uses C6 plus D6, and next row becomes C7 plus D7, then C8 plus D8. Notice what happened. The row number changed as we move down. This is called a relative references. The cell address changed relative to their position. Now, let's look at another example. This time, we will move to the right. Type an equal sign, select the top cell. Type a plus sign, select the cell below it. Press enter. Now drag the fill handle to the right. The first formula is B16 plus B17. And the next formula becomes C16 plus C17. Then C16 plus D17. The formula later changes as we move to the right. This is also a relative references. The cell address change automatically based on their location. However, cell address should not always change. Let's look at another example. This table contains wrong amounts in Uganda shillings. We want to convert this value into US dollars. The exchange rate is 3,700 shillings for 1 US dollar. And this exchange rate must stay the same. Select the amount in USD dollar cell. Type an equal sign, the amount in UGX cell. Type a slash. Then click the exchange rate cell. Press enter. The first result looks correct. Now let's drag the fill handle downward. What is that? Let's look at the formulas. The first formula is correct. But when we drag the formula down, the exchange rate cell also moves one row down. This happens because Excel is using a relative references. The exchange rate keeps changing even though it should stay exactly the same. The exchange rate should not move. It should not change. It should always refer to the same cell. This is called an absolute references. So, how do we create an absolute references? Let's fix the formula. Double-click the formula cell to edit the formula. Now select the cell that contains the exchange rate. In this sample, it is cell B3. So click B3, then press the F4 key. Look carefully. The cell references change from B3 to $B, $3. In Excel, the dollar signs mean rock these references. The dollar sign before B rock the column, and the dollar sign before 3 rock the row. That means the column cannot change and row cannot change. The reference is completely rocked. You can type the dollar sign manually, but pressing F4 is much easier, so I highly recommend using the key. Now press enter, then drag the fill handle downward. This time, everything worked correctly. Notice that exchange rate does not move. It stays on the same cell for every formula. That is the power of an absolute references. You can think of it like this. The exchange rate must never change. So we tell Excel always use this cell. And Excel keeps the references fixed. Now, let's practice using absolute references. We are going to create a multiplication table. A multiplication table is one of the best ways to understand references. We will create the 2 times table throughout the 9 times table. Let's start with 2 times 1. Type an equal sign, click the number 2. Type an asterisk. Then click the number 1. Press enter. Now let's drag the fill handle downward. At first glance, it may look fine. But let's check the formula. Double-click one of the cells. Notice something important. The cell containing the number 2 has moved down, but the number should stay exactly the same. Every row should still multiply by 2. Because the references moved, the results are no longer correct. So, how do we fix it? Double-click the formula. Select the cell that contains the number 2. Then press the F4 key. Now that references is rocked, press enter. Then drag the fill handle downward again. This time, the calculations are correct. The number 2 remains fixed for every row. We can use the same method for the 3 times table and 4 times table and the remaining tables. Whenever a value should not move, use F4 to create an absolute references. Now, Let's learn about mixed reference. So far, we have learned about relative references and absolute references. Now we will combine those two ideas. This is called a mixed references. The multiplication table is a great example for understanding mixed reference. In fact, we can fill the entire multiplication table with just one formula. It may sound difficult, but don't worry, let's go through it step by step. Look at the formula on the screen. You will notice that some references contain $sign. Let's look at the first one. See $5. Notice that $sign is before low number. This means the row is robbed, but the column is not robbed. The column can still change. As we move to right, C can become D, D can become E, E can become F. But row 5 always stays the same. Now let's look at another reference, $A6. This time, the $sign is before the column letter. That means the column is robbed, but the rows can still change. As we move downward, row 6 can become 7, 7 become 8, 8 become 9, but column A always stays the same. This is called a mixed reference. Only one part is robbed. The other part can still change. Now, let's see why mixed references are useful. Look at the multiplication table. Across the top, we have the numbers 2, 3, 4, and so on. Down the left side, we have the number 1, 2, 3, and so on. We want to multiply the top numbers by the side numbers. For example, 2 times 1, 3 times 1, 4 times 1, and so on. Let's create the first formula. Type on equal sign, click the number 2, and type on asterisk. Then click the number 1. Let's create first formula. Type on equal sign, click the number 2, type on asterisk. Then click the number 1. Press enter. The answer is 2. Now let's think carefully. When we move to the right, the top number should change. 2 should become 3, 3 should become 4, 4 should become 5. So the column must be allowed to change. However, those numbers are all located on row 5. The row must stay exactly the same. So we'll lock the row. Select the references, then press F4 2 times. Now it became C$5. The row is robbed. The column can still change. It's perfect. Now let's look at the number 1. As we move downward, 1 should become 2, 2 should become 3, 3 should become 4. So the row must be allowed to change. However, those numbers are all located in column A. The column must stay exactly the same. So we'll lock the column. Select the references, then press F4 3 times. Now it becomes $A6. The column is robbed. The row can still change. Perfect. Let's review one more time. For the top number, the row must stay the same. The column can change, so we use C$5. For the left side numbers, the column must stay the same. The row can change, so we use $A6. This is the key idea behind mixed references. Now press enter, drag the fill handle all the way down, then drag it all the way to the right. Watch what happens. Every formula is calculated correctly. The entire multiplication table is complete automatically, and we use only one formula. Pretty amazing, right? Today we learned the foundation of Excel formula. We practice addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. We also learned the difference between relative references and absolute references, and mixed references. Remember this important tip. If a cell references must not change, press F4. Excel will lock the references for you. At first, references may seem confusing. But once you practice them yourself, they become much easier to understand. I highly recommend downloading the practice file and entering the formulas on your own. Thank you for joining today's lesson. See you in the next lesson. Bye.